Hello, and welcome to this, our 224th live stream. Pareidolia, Paranoia. This is, of course, a reference to all the Pareidolia we saw in Monday's video, where we did that part 3 of our masterclass on the early alphabetic inscriptions and the thesis of Michael Baron. If you are interested, go have a look at that series, and you'll learn probably more than you ever wanted to about early alphabetic epigraphy. So, with that said, we don't have too much in the way of channel business here, so we'll probably be getting right into the questions. The only thing I would ask is if you have, read our novel series, particularly the first book here, please do leave a review on Amazon. It really helps us. Okay, so let's get into the rules. If I can find my rule sheet, my cue card here. Cue card. Yeah, I found my cue card. Where'd all my rules go? All right, I might just have to wing this. Oh, there they are. All right. All right. Super chats have priority. You all know that. This is standard YouTube. Doesn't guarantee your question gets answered, but it does guarantee your question gets seen. We also take non-super chats as long as they start with a Q and a colon. Again, no guarantee we'll take the question, but if there's no Q and no colon, we don't see it. It doesn't exist. Only post your non-super chat questions once. Question spamming will get your question disqualified for the night. If it happens to deal with some verse in the Bible, we ask for a little bit of context. In particular, what we're going to need is what chapter it's from, what book it's from, and what verse. So, book, chapter, verse. That just narrows things down so we know what text we're actually talking about. Yeah, so we don't spend 20 minutes or we guess and all that stuff. So, it's really, really important that you include that information. We also ask that if you do sponsor a question, please retry the question in your super chat so we don't have to go hunting for it. And finally, one question per chat. No question stacking. Question stack, we're just going to pick one question and call that answered. Because there's too many stacked questions, and it takes too much time to answer all the questions. Like we had one instance where a guy managed to stack 10 questions in a super chat. There's no way we can answer that. Okay. So, with that said, we hope you're safe this Friday night, and I believe it's Labor Day weekend this weekend, so I hope you all have a great weekend, long weekend. Well, it is, but yeah, we have Labor Day here. Right now, the weather here in Vancouver is absolutely sweltering. It's hot, really, really hot. So we're all melting here. I'm melting. Mrs. Producer's melting. The bunny's melting. Yeah, just ugh. Next week, it'll probably be wet and cold. But this week, we're still in summer. We're still in that August. So, okay. Let's get to the questions. All right, this go. And we don't seem to have a lot of them tonight, so this might be a short night too. So, who knows? I am very tired. I did not get any sleep last night, so I am feeling very punchy. So this could be this could be a rant-filled Friday night. And we all know how you guys hate rants. Okay. Harry Stark asks, will David ever publish his memoirs? Probably not. A good friend asked me that once. She asked if I would ever write a book on to recall my memoirs and all that. And I said, nah, uh-uh. Uh and I said the reason I told him was, nobody would believe it. Nobody would believe my memoirs if I wrote them. So, Adventures of Dr. Cairo. Could be. Could be. But yeah, no one would believe it. No one would believe half the stuff. I mean, half the stuff I tell you on this channel, people raise an eyebrow at. Yeah, if I told you the really crazy stuff, yeah, nobody would believe it. So I'm very, very unlikely to do my memoirs or publish them. All right, so that's the first question. No memoirs. Question 2 here. Darkblade asks, how did Jericho didn't exist in late Bronze Age ever become consensus when the latest findings indicate it as a fundamentally idiotic idea, since the evidence to the contrary was always there? People just didn't want to believe it. It comes right down to that. There was lots of evidence for a late Bronze Jericho, and I'd been pushing it for years prior to Nigro's findings. And the answer was always the same. Why would you want to go against the consensus? Consensus says the conquest of Jericho is a myth. Why would you want to go against the consensus? People do behave very slavishly towards consensus thinking. They do want to run in a herd. And scholars are no different. Scholars do want run in herds. So it is one of those things where, it's just one of those things is, yeah, I'm a linguist. Bible and Archaeology YouTube channel still speaks against the late Bronze existence of Jericho. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. We've been we've been talking about this for decades, even after, say, Kenyon's excavations, that there is a strong possibility for a late Bronze Age Jericho based upon not just her excavations, but on Garstang's as well. So, but, once the consensus got it in their head that there was no late Bronze Age Jericho, that was it for them. Evidence stopped mattering at that point. And, crazy, but there it is. And people still perpetuate that. Yeah, people still perpetuate that. So, what can you say? You can't. You can lead people to evidence, but you can't make them believe it. And that's one of the harsh truths of our world. Okay, next one. Next on Super Chat here is from Darkblade again. How did anti-alcohol faith traditions emerge? They emerged out of the gin craze of the early 17th century. Okay. In the early 17th century, people started producing gin in England, and it became the drink of choice for coal miners, and they would spend their entire paychecks on gin, and it became a real social ill. So around the same time as this gin craze was going on, the Methodists started forming temperance movements. And the temperance movement became very, very closely associated with British Methodism. And from that, Mama says, cheap, high proof. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very high proof. So, oh, it destroyed lives. It absolutely destroyed lives. And I'm not a teetotaler either, but um, the gin craze bankrupted families. People weren't able to buy their groceries because daddy was out drinking gin. They were working in mines and in miserable conditions. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a no-win situation because the working conditions were so bad. It was, yeah. Bombard says, was it kind of like what alcohol did to the Native Americans? It was similar, but not exactly the same. Um, in the case of the Native Americans don't have a particular gene that's needed to metabolize alcohol, so they feel effects a lot stronger. So it wasn't quite as bad as what happened to Native Americans and alcohol, but it did have real social consequences and real social ills. And because of that, you got these temperance movements forming, and this, of course, then led to, say, the suffragette movement. So, so most of the sort of anti-alcohol faith traditions got their start out from the gin craze. That's really where they got their start, and then they just sort of spread out to Europe and America after that. So okay, so that answers our third non-super chat here. Let's get to the super chats. First one here. Which one? 810. Okay, we'll take it. Okay, we'll take this non-super chat too, even though it does not have a Q and a colon in front of it. Stewie Green says, my daughter has been studying ancient Egypt, grade 7, when I started. Great time to do it. She's going to be a great Egyptologist. And would like to know if Zoser was the first or second pharaoh of the third dynasty. I believe he's the first pharaoh of the third dynasty. I'll just double check just so I don't give you any false information here, but why different books say different things? We'll get that to that in a moment. Okay, he's the second pharaoh. So there you go. So he's not the first pharaoh, Dynasty 3, he's the second. So just one. And the source of that is my Groundhog chronology. And that is based upon Ian Shaw's book on the Oxford Handbook of Egyptian history, of ancient Egypt. So the Oxford Handbook of Ancient History is my source on that. The first king of Dynasty 3 is Nebka. And the second one is Zoser. So why do textbooks say different things? Because they're written by different people. Uh, so um, and these arrangement of kings is not perfect science either. Okay, there are some debates on whether a king belongs to one dynasty or the other. So those debates can happen from time to time. Like some people will put Nebka at the end of Dynasty 2, whereas guys like Shaw and myself, I'll put Nebka at the beginning of Dynasty 3. So it's really going to depend on who you talk to. And not everyone's going to have the same opinion about every king and where they slot in certain dynasties. So, hope that helps. Thank you very much for that question. And I hope you do very well in school and get good grades on this, because Ancient Egypt's fun. Okay, next one. First super chat here is from Jack Ray for $5. Thank you for the super chat. And he asks, what is your opinion on someone getting a doctorate from the Melbourne School of Theology? I don't have too much to say about this. It's not a well-known school. It's an evangelical school. I don't think there's any real problem with that. The only thing that sort of makes me hesitant about them is some of the reviews I've read about that they don't treat their lower staff very well. So that's about the only thing I've heard about them. But that may not affect your education in any way. So yeah, I don't have any particularly strong opinions about them one way or the other. I don't think they're a degree mill. They've been around for 80 years. So yeah, I think it's a perfectly reasonable choice for getting a doctorate. And I think they're affiliated with, what was it? Something like the Anglican School of Theology in Australia. So I think they do have secondary degree granting status. So I think it's probably perfectly acceptable for getting a doctorate. So hope that helps. Thank you for the super chat. Very much appreciated. All right, Andrew Guler for $20. Thank you very much for that generous super chat. The Jews attacked and attempted to conquer Jerusalem several times before David. Why did they want it? Because it's smack dab in the middle of the tribal holdings of Judah. Okay? It's right in the middle of it. So if you want to control the area, you really do need to have Jerusalem as well if you want to control Judah. So if you want to control the territory of Judah, you need Jerusalem too. And the Judahites were able to conquer everything in their tribal holdings except for Jerusalem. And it was a city basically controlled by Jebusites. And Jebusites is just sort of a local ethnonym for Amorites. So this is just another type of Amorite. So, yeah, Jerusalem has high ground. But it's also, as I said, it's in the middle of the territory. So you really need to control that if you want to control the region. So they sacked it once during the initial conquest, but they didn't capture it. The Jebusites managed to hold on for a long time. Darkblade, is this related to why holding Jerusalem has been contentious since 1947? Partially, yes. It's of strategic value. It's very strategic. You cannot control the Judean foothills without it. And the Judean foothills are really, really important for controlling that strip of land. It's probably the most strategically important city there. So, at least in the Judean foothills. Mama says, boys and girls in music, why do they need gin? Annie from It's a Wonderful Life, 1947. Hey, there were a lot of gin drinkers back then. It's not so popular a drink today. Yeah, whiskey's taken its place. It's a very perfumey. If you've never had gin, it's very it's distilled spirits that's flavored with juniper. And it's very perfumey, very strong. Women tend to drink it more than men these days. But back then it was a men's drink. Yeah, yep. Mrs. Producer says it was like drinking perfume. Yes, it's exactly like drinking perfume. Disgusting. Yeah, probably because there's better stuff to drink. Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's better to drink than gin. I don't like gin. Okay. Next on the list here. Uh yeah, it's gross. I agree, Mama. Gin is gross. Um I mean, I like lots. I like hard liquors. I mean, I like whiskeys, like rums. I shouldn't drink rums, but I like them. Um, I even like say Asian like sochu. Just don't like gin. Gin is just ugh. As Miss Producer says, like drinking perfume. Yeah, it is usually a women's drink these days. These days it is. But in the 17th century, it was a man's drink. Okay, next one here is from Andrew Guler for $20. Thank you very much for the super chat. I heard that the New Testament manuscripts were written with no spaces or punctuation, so they could fit as much on the page as possible. Were Old Testament manuscripts written the same way? Oh yeah, Old Testament manuscripts had no spaces and no punctuation. They both did. This was just normal for ancient manuscripts. Ancient manuscripts normally had no spaces between words and no punctuation to speak of. Punctuation's not going to be developed for, in the case of the New Testament, another 1,000 years. Spaces start creeping in around the 4th, 5th century AD. So, um, there's it's one of those things. It just doesn't come into the text until much later on. So you have to know the language well enough to be able to read it without the spaces. Now this was true of both ancient Greek, ancient Latin, and Hebrew. Even Egyptian. Egyptian was all, had no spaces or punctuation either. So, Dark Blade says, even in Thai, spaces still mostly don't exist. Yeah, that I can see that. Yeah. Alrighty. Ryan goes, no spaces. That is crazy. Darkblade asks, did the final forms of letters like Kof and Noon at least exist? No, they didn't. You did have Aramaic characters by that point, but the final Kof and Noon didn't exist in those periods of where there were no spaces. So that's going to come as a later development in the Aramaic script. But yeah, you look at some of those early manuscripts, and yeah, they're just run on continuous lines. Mama says, "How does one even read something like that?" You can do it. What's crazy? What's even crazier than that is you could read that sentence without spaces and without vowels. Take the vowels out, and you can still read it. This is one of those tricks I had in grad school. Was to make note taking easier, I would remove all the vowels. Wow, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can remove all the vowels and it's still readable. All right. Okay. Next one here is going to be from Bonbon for $2 Canadian. Thank you for the super chat. Is firmament in the Bible a scientific error? No. The reason why is because the question is a category error. Okay? It's a bad question. It's a good question. The question's good. It's a bad question, though. You've got a category error in the question. So, if you've got a category error in the question's invalid. So, is the firmament in the Bible a scientific error? No, because there was no science back then. Because there was no science back then, it was to ascribe a scientific meaning to firmament is a category error. So what you have to do is then take the firmament in its context, which in this case is going to mean something like sky or celestial ocean, and it's a kind of analogical thinking. So it's not a hard claim of cosmology, as much as there are skeptics out there that try to make that. Bonbon says, but I thought firmament is a claim about cosmology of the real world. It's not so much a claim of the real world, it's a way of relating to the real world. There is a difference there. Here's one of the things I think we have to be very careful of when we talk about the biblical texts is this is not a scientific culture. They don't understand that stuff. It's a magical culture. It's a culture of ritual. It's a culture of that believes in mysticism and magic. Okay? They don't know about science yet. And science is not going to come about for hundreds of years, thousands of years. So, it's not a claim. They're not making that as claims. They're using descriptors because it's just outside of the frame of reference. So, you don't want to graph anachronistic concepts like science and truth claims like that upon something that's essentially an ancient text. So a follow-up question here from Ryan. So what did the ancient Jews think the firmament was? Some thought it was a celestial ocean. That's been one posited. Some thought it was a kind of ceiling, which I guess in a way it is. I mean, you're not leaving this earth very soon and getting past the firmament for the most of us. So, but it's not something that they were hard. They sort of held to hard and fast. Bonbon says, in the Talmud, but rabbis debate on the thickness of the firmament, and that doesn't surprise me because those guys debate about everything. You had a lot of those kind of debates going on in those periods of time. So, but yeah, it's one of those things that they're going to debate about it. They're going to debate what it is, how big it is, can you cross it. They have all sorts of interesting sort of back and forth ideas about the firmament. But it's also one of those things too where, you know, they really are. They're really trying to come to grips with something they don't understand. So it's important to keep that in mind as we talk about this topic. So anyway, I hope that helps. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you for the follow-up question. Yeah, it's we just have to be really careful, as I said. that we don't fall into a category error by mistake, because otherwise, you're just going to get things wrong. And I think here's one of the things is one of the reasons why I don't like concordant views of the Bible. Where people try to reconcile the Bible with science. I don't like when people do that. And I don't like it because when you do that, you're trying to shove the Bible into categories that it was never meant to have. That they just never did even thought of in terms. And this is true. This is true of both, say, creationists as well as theistic evolutionists. Even old Earth creationists do this, and I think it's just wrong thinking. You're going to run into errors when you do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bonbon says here, imagine trying to teach them scientific cosmology to an ancient Near Eastern culture. That would have been impossible. He goes on, imagine telling them about layers of atmosphere and how much explanation you'd have to give to a subsistence farmer culture thousands of years ago. It'd be way too much. Yeah, exactly. It would be. Just trying to teach them the hydrologic cycle would have been beyond their comprehension. So these people don't even know how large the Earth is, and so you're going to try to teach them about things such as the Earth is round, and you've got this hydrological cycle of evaporation, condensation, precipitation. All they know is the spring works, and they can get well from the water. That's what they hope. I mean, that's what they believe. Is you go to the spring, you go to the well, and you get water there. They don't know how it gets there. They don't care how it gets there. They only care when it runs out. Okay. So, yeah, we shouldn't expect ancient peoples to understand things like cosmology. It's just Jack Ray says, wait, no quantum superpositions knowledge? I find too many people here with that knowledge. Yeah, you're not gonna find too many people who have that kind of knowledge. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, even today. All right, next super chat is from CJP for $2. Thank you for the super chat. What do we know about Melchizedek, king of Salem? Not very much, I'm afraid. We do not have any royal annals from Jerusalem. He would have been king of Salem, or as it was pronounced in the Akkadian text, Urushalem. We know that his name means Zadok is king, and Zadok was a Jebusite deity, just like Shalem was a Jebusite deity. That's really about all we know. It's a theophoric name. We don't know anything else about him, really. At least not much. So, we know very, very little about Melchizedek. But that's about what we do know. We do know he was a real person. We know his name is a Jebusite name. We know his gods were Jebusite gods. Zadok is a Jebusite god. Shalem's a Jebusite god. And he's the high priest of El Elyon. That's about it. Okay. So I hope that helps. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And CJP asks for $2. What do we know about Salem? Genesis 14:18. Well, let's pull up Genesis 14:18 and let's have a look. Genesis 14:18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of God Most High. That's El Elyon. All right. What we know about Salem is it's where Jerusalem is today. It was a fortified city. It had Middle Bronze fortifications. It does seem to have gone back at least to the Middle Bronze Age, which is contemporaneous with Abraham anyway. We don't know a lot about the city itself because archaeology in Jerusalem is a bit difficult to do. So there people are finding stuff in Jerusalem though. We do know that there were Middle Bronze fortifications there. We do know that there was some late Bronze stuff we're a lot less clear on for Jerusalem. But again, Jerusalem is one of those places that's really hard to excavate. So Bon says, I wish we could dig up the Temple Mount. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'd love that one, too. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So, yeah, not going to happen. I'd love it, though. Well, just from the Phil site. Huh? Yeah, a lot of people would love to dig up the Temple Mount. Well, just from the Phil site, when the Muslims did that illegal mosque construction into the Temple Mount, they took a lot of that fill and dumped it outside the city. And the Jerusalem fill sifting project has found some really, really neat stuff. They found a few bullae. They found a piece of limestone lintel. They have found some coinage. So there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff that the fill sifting project has found. So it just would strike me that if we ever did get the opportunity to excavate at the Temple Mount, it would produce some incredible discoveries. But start praying for an earthquake on the Temple Mount. Yeah. Hey, if God wants it, God'll level the site. uh 840 you said? Okay, yeah. WLL asks a follow-up question to the Melchizedek question. What was Melchizedek's connection to Jesus? We are talking here what's called a parabolic act. He's a kind of what you'd say is a archetype. He's an archetype to Jesus. Okay. Melchizedek was both a king and a priest. Now, this is not something that's allowed in Israelite culture. In Israelite culture, your kings have to be separate from your priests. There's a reason why kings are from the line of Judah and priests are from the line of Levi. You're not supposed to have your kings acting as priests or your priests acting like kings. So the whole idea of, say, the Messiah being prophet, priest, and king has to then fit with a different rubric than you would get from, say, the Aaronic priesthood. So then the connection to Jesus is a priest after the likeness of Melchizedek. So he's a different kind of priest, not Aaronic. He's a prophet, priest, and king. Not an ironic priest, an Aaronic priest. It is ironic, but it's Aaronic. After the line of Aaron. Okay. Oh, you've got them repeating the ironic priest now. We've got new lore. We got new lore. You. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, so that's the connection to Jesus. Jesus is a priest after the likeness of Melchizedek. It wasn't from a line of priests, didn't continue a line of priests. He's a one-off. He's something special. He's unique. And Melchizedek was unique as a priest and king. So that's the connection to Jesus. Jesus is following the same pattern of priesthood, not of the line of Aaron, but of the line of the pattern of Melchizedek. So, hope that helps. Thank you for the question. Very much appreciated. What? Okay. Darkblade, good, because the proto meme seems to have already died. I think that's for a good thing. CPM versus DOS, proto ironic. Ooh. Ooh. Mama says YouTube has already made me refresh twice. It's made me refresh twice, and I'm running this stream. I just really hope you actually get some ad rev. I turn off the ad revenue for the live streams when they're broadcasting. Okay, so and fortunately they still allow me to do that. I don't know how much longer they'll let me do that. In fact, I just got another ad here saying now would be a good time to insert ads. Creators earn more money inserting ads, more viewers are watching. Give it a try. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, it's all YouTube. It's just this is a YouTube thing. Uh they're listening. Yeah, I suppose they are. It's like, oh boy. Bubble Trouble says nothing beats a jet to holiday. Well, I get the deep fake ads where for Carney, Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, deep fake saying, "Oh, I hate those ads. I hate those ads so much." Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Uh Ambolinguous for Files. Thank you very much for the super chat. I hope you're doing well tonight. I hope you're going to be at ETS Razor this year. If we do, we should hook up. He says, "Rants, you say? What do you think of Liverani and his book on the history of Israel and the history of Israel?" I'm not a fan. I haven't read it. I've read some of Liverani's stuff, and I was never really a fan of it anyway. Um, some of his ideas are a little odd. Say, um, he does seem to sort of try to go with the David the warlord thing, being in competition with Saul, and it doesn't seem to be quite how the narrative works there. So, you got an ad? Um, Bonbon says you'll need to get ad block or use a browser with an inbuilt ad block. The problem with that is that violates their terms of service. So you could get your account banned. So you gotta be really, really careful with ad blockers on YouTube. Oh yeah, they track that one really well. Yeah, they know when you've received an ad. So if you're watching their content and you're not receiving ads, they know. Jackray goes, I have YouTube Premium because I watch so much YouTube. Okay, cool. That's fantastic. I'm too cheap to pay for YouTube Premium. Bonbon, well, they haven't done anything to me yet. Give it time. Give it time. I tried an ad blocker once and I got a warning like that same day. I got a warning that same day. Yeah, I got a big black warning across the screen saying ad blockers are against our terms of service and can lead to your cancellation of your services and all that stuff. Which, given that I make my living off of YouTube, is not great. It's just not great. So yeah, you got to be real careful with that app blocking stuff because it can come back to give you a wallop. Bonbon says, "Oh, I got that too, but I just ignored it. I don't care. I understand it's different for you though. You cannot risk it. No, we can't risk it. We can't risk it. This is our livelihood. So yeah, we can't risk doing ad blockers." PA888 says, I would not mind the ads, but they're just so bad. They're so scammy. I mean, it's crazy how much scammy stuff is in their ads. And you know, they're talking about, you know, eliminating deep fakes and AI content on their videos, but their ads are full of it. It's full of that stuff. Like, come on, guys. You know, if you're gonna sort of you know, go drop the hammer on channels that have AI content, couldn't you at least do it for the ads? Really? Haystack goes, how do these ads know I'm blocking? I'm balding? Or how do these ads know I'm balding? Oh, well. Demographics. Demographics. The wonderful science of demographics. If you happen to be in a certain age group, and they know your age, of a certain gender, they know your gender, and if from a certain area of the country, they know where you live, they can figure out you're probably good, say 30-40% chance you're balding. CPM versus DUS. Been looking into some anti-balding stuff. Cookies got you too. Busted. Busted. Bonbon turkey airplane tickets for cheap. Yeah. Oh, they'll find all sorts of ways to tailor ads to you. And they know all sorts of crazy stuff about you. Absolutely. They know what you like to watch. They know about your political leanings because of what you watch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They will even target those who are sharing like the same IP. So if you're sharing the same ITP address, yeah, they'll like. I mean, I'll get some ads that are directed to Mrs. Producer, and she'll get some ads that were supposed to be directed to me. They don't know that we're different, but the haystack goes. They know about my Mormon content and Star Wars and Egypt research. It tells them actually more than you think. But that tells them a lot more. Okay, like we'll take an example. I mean, I worked on for companies that did this. Okay, where they would take what content you're watching and extrapolate information from that content. Like for example, it'll just take Haystack. We'll just take yours here. They got your religion. Okay. Now Mormons on average earn more than say your average American. Okay, so they already know you're in the upper probably in the upper socioeconomic category already. They know you're probably better educated than most people. Star Wars, okay, you've got some discretionary income. Because people don't get into Star Wars without some discretionary income. And Egypt research, okay, they know you have an interest in scholastic topics. So just from those three pieces of information, they can extrapolate a whole lot of information. Like one of the pieces of information that they could easily extrapolate from that is you don't give nearly enough to my channel. Sorry, couldn't resist. Didn't try very hard either. That was lingo. Oof, that burn! Animal new laughing face. Mama, facts. Haystack goes, all our money goes to books for the kids mostly. Yeah, I'm probably sure. But YouTube and any social media platform can figure these things out from your hobbies, from your religion, from where you live, your age, your gender, your socioeconomic status. There is so much they can learn just from the little tidbits of your life. Jacare, the unblockable Volcat. Oh boy. Mama says, I actually thought you were addressing that to YouTube, not giving you enough. Yeah, they're not giving me enough either. I mean, they take a huge chunk. YouTube takes 30% of everything. So 30%, 3 out of every $10 that I make goes back to YouTube. So, yeah, they take a good chunk. Not as much as my publishers do, but it's a sizable bit. YouTube takes 30% off super chats too. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's still better than Amazon though. Oh, jeez. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we also then pay taxes on top of that too. Which is why we appreciate people who give to us through PayPal, because at least on PayPal we're not paying taxes because that's considered a gift. So yeah, so donations through PayPal go a lot farther for us. So we always prefer those if you want to just give to the channel without asking a question, do it through PayPal. It just we win on by a lower cut, much lower cut through PayPal. I think it's like 0.5% on PayPal, and it's tax free. So that's a huge thing. Okay, so all right, next here. So that covers that. As I said, though, much better than Amazon. Much better than Amazon. Okay. Next one here, and actually, this is our last super chat. Looks like. So we're off to an early night, maybe. Who knows? All right, from Bubble Trouble asks a member question here. In John 12:3, it says pounds in some translations and 12 ounces in other. What is the reason for this difference in the text? Pull up the text. John chapter 12, verse 3. All right. Mary therefore took a pound of very costly perfume of pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. All right. Now, the Greek term here is litra. And a litra is roughly, but not quite, a pound. Okay? So it depends on, this is just a matter of translation here. If you want to get more specific here, it's going to say 12 ounces. 12 ounces is not a pound. 16 ounces is a pound. Isn't it? 16 ounces per pound? Yeah, okay. So it's actually closer to 12 ounces than it is to 16 ounces. So this is just going to be just a matter of precision in translation, that's all. But it's roughly a pound. So it's going to depend a lot on your translational the translational philosophy of that particular translator, whether they translated a pound and say, that's close enough for government work, or whether or not they're going to be really precise and say 12 ounces. Okay? So that's really what we're talking about there. So 12 for troy ounce. Okay. Not sure they're using troy ounces there, but okay. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Okay. So I hope that helps. It's just translational philosophy that's behind this. CPM versus DOS. It's my birthday today, so I request the bunny, please. Should we give her a bunny cam shot? All right. She's not gonna like this. We'll get out the bunny cam. The bunny. You see yourself? Oh, here's the bunny. The bunny. Sweetie. Okay. Put her back. Yep, I'm covered in bunny fur now. There I am. Oh, here's banana chips. Yeah, gotta pay the bunny. She's mad at me. Ugh. Yeah, now I'm covered in bunny hair. Alrighty. Alright. Worth it? Well, I'm glad to hear it was worth it. She does not like being picked up. She's a ground dwelling bunny, so we don't pick her up very often. So she gets really annoyed when we pick her up. So, but she's so cute when you do, and they smell like flowers. It's really uncanny. Um, you pick them up and you hold them and you smell them behind the neck, and it's like they smell like flowers. It's uncanny. Bunnies smell like flowers. And I think it's a survival mechanism where they don't smell like prey. They smell like a field. A way of camouflaging their scent. Yeah. What breed is she? She is a Harlequin Lionhead. So, yeah, she is a Harlequin Lionhead. Ryan says, you mean flowers smell like bunnies? Yeah, that's one way of putting it, I guess. That sounds amazing. It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. Okay. Bonmon says, what do you think about white bunnies with red eyes? I don't have any problem with them, honestly. They're very sweet. I um but I like strange looking bunnies anyway. I mean, I like black bunnies. There's two kinds of rabbits that don't get adopted very often. Red-eyed whites and black bunnies for some reason. Um they're not albino. They're not albino. Um they're actually a breed. They're actually, I think they're called there's several breeds of red-eyed whites, but they're not albinos. They're it's a proper eye color. It's a proper eye color within rabbits. For me, it's more about bunny breed and personality than anything else. Really, I will adopt any kind of rabbit, other than say a mini Rex. And don't get me wrong, mini Rexes are cute, adorable, the softest bunnies you'll um ever touch. I mean, it's like we had one pet sitter describe it as um diving into a pool. Soft as that. Mhm. So, um, but I won't get another mini Rex. Yeah, mini T Rex. Anything that went into that little girl's mouth that she ate. She ate dinosaur bone. Yeah, that was the one that ate the dinosaur bone. Um, yeah, she's the rabbit who Velocirabbit is named after, inspired after. Um, but yeah, mini T Rex is not inappropriate. Um, so definitely not an inappropriate way of saying it. The only thing is they have very, very bad tooth issues, and mini rexes can get really, really expensive for dental care, for vet care, because of that tooth issue. So I tend to pick breeds of rabbits that don't develop those problems. Okay. Ballard asks, "Do you ever take your bunnies outside?" No, never, never. The only time she ever goes outside is when she has to make a trip to the vet. That's it. Are they indoor pets only? Their best is indoor pets only. Really. I would never leave mine in a hutch outside. Um, that's just it's cruel. It's um they can get really injured out there very badly. Um, so you know, Harry Stark asks, "Would she leave the moment the door is open?" No, not typically. Not typically. Rabbits don't typically do that. Um, only if they're scared. Okay, only if they're extremely frightened, and you never want to have a rabbit that's that frightened anyway. So so um I think it's one of those things where you just take some common sense precautions and you're fine with it. Bubble Trouble says, "I'm getting a big bunny so my cat won't get any ideas." Big bunnies are wonderful. Oh my gosh. They are teddy bears. Oh my gosh. We had a giant a silver fox, a giant male rabbit once. And this was the chillest rabbit you've ever encountered. You could pet him in both directions, back pet him, and he just doesn't mind, just lets into it. Uh we could take him to bed and he'd eat out sleep us. He was just he was a teddy bear. Just an absolute teddy bear. So I would, and again, for any large rabbit, I'd recommend a male. Males are generally more cuddly anyway. If you want something that you can cuddle, um, Harry Stark asks, "Has David ever considered in getting birds?" I hate birds. I hate birds. Um, I really don't like birds at all. Um, CPM versus DOS. Same with cats. Males are the cuddly ones. Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing: if you want a rabbit with a deplorable excess of personality, females are the way to go. Females tend to be very active. Uh, they tend to get very snarky. So if you want something that's and a really a rabbit that will entertain you, then female rabbits might be the way to go. Although not all rabbits have the same personality. But if you want something that's a rabbit that's more cuddly, then the males are the way to go. And male giant rabbits are just the most cuddliest rabbits you'll ever encounter. Okay. Get an emu for a pet. Not a chance. Get a cassowary for a pet. Frickin' yeah, I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get an emu or a cassowary. Terrible things. Yeah, I don't want to be disemboweled by my pet. Thank you very much. Okay. That was fun digression. So you got the bunny camp. Yes. Catholic Forever says President Andrew Jackson had a pet parrot that apparently had the habit of repeating profanities. Oh yeah, they will. They'll pick that up in the pet stores. Yeah, just crazy. Ostrich? Ostriches are dumb. They're stupid birds. Bubble Trouble says, I want a big bunny. Meanwhile, Milo wants an Asian water monitor. Oh man. Uh, I I don't know that. I don't think that's a good mix. Just just saying. Probably not a good mix. I don't think the two would get along very well. And what? Oh yeah, Asian water monitors have serious vet bills attached. Yeah. Yeah, you don't get an Asian water monitor unless you have deep pockets. The exotic vet bills for that were just are horrible. Bubble Trouble. Well, I don't think we'll live in the same house. Hey, if he's out on his own, he can have whatever he wants, right? He's got to pay the vet bills. I just am not into the whole reptile thing. They are very pretty. I mean, reptiles can be very attractive and very good pets. Some of them, particularly like skinks. Skinks make excellent pets, but I still wouldn't want one. Uh Bama says I love reptiles so much. I just don't. It's not a pet you can really interact with. Reptiles are very hard to interact with. They're not great for that. Skink is probably your best option for that. Some monitors apparently do make good pets that you can interact with, but there's always going to be limitations to how much you can interact with those animals. So, um, marine reptiles, however, oh yeah, stay away from marine reptiles. Ooh, not good. Not good. Yeah, the sea crate is not something you want to play plan with. Yeah, sea reptiles are super toxic. The inland taipan, yeah. Yeah, though that's a life-ending move there. Yeah, the inland taipan will make you bleed out of all orifices. Yeah, you just don't want that. Same with the boom slang. You don't want a boom slang either. Ryan asks, actually, a Bible question. Funny that. Is the serpent in the garden an actual normal creature, or was it purely a spirit critter? It's purely a spirit critter. Okay? It's not a normal creature. Not even close to a normal creature. It's 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 compared to a serpent because they're trying to draw a unfavorable, and the writer of Genesis is trying to draw an unfavorable illusion. Okay, but the serpent in the garden is actually a spirit critter. It's not a normal creature, but it's sort of um it's anamorphized. It's anamorphized to take on, say, the traits of a creature, so that you can kind of see this is not a god. This is a bum. He's a bum. And he's a danger noodle kind of bum. Harry Stark, did dragons akin to St. George's dragon actually exist? Well, that's an illusion too. Um, St. George's dragon wasn't really a serpent. Paganism. Paganism. Here's one. Here's your 30-second Renaissance art lesson. Okay, you're gonna get a semesters of Renaissance art training in 30 seconds here. If it's St. George symbolizes the church. The dragon symbolizes the paganism. If it's Saint Michael, he symbolizes the heavenly host, and the dragon that Saint Michael slays is the devil. There you go. Your 30-second Renaissance art lesson. Yeah. And if you get the two confused in an art history class, you'll be flunked. Just warning you. So don't get the two confused. Make sure you understand when you look at your painting which one's St. George, which one's St. Michael. Okay? Very, very different symbols. Yeah, everyone back then knew the difference between St. George and St. Michael. So double trouble, man. Dragon's got the short end of the stick. Yeah, sure did. Yeah. Let's move on to the next super chat here. The haystack here for 199. Thank you for the super chat. A question above concerning Cayenne. Oh, you didn't leave that in the. Where is that? This is why we asked you to copy the question into the. So I don't have to go hunting for it. Now I gotta go hunting for it. You know, a timestamp? Timestamp would be great. Just prior to that super. When was that super? Super. 9:05. It's just before 9:05. Turning the bunny stuff. Well, super chat's at 9:05. $9:03. Okay, I see it. All right, here's the question. For the haystack, Cayenne, Hyksos king had seals as far as Greece. What's a good reason that he could not be the pharaoh of Joseph? Take a look at his dates here. It's possible. It's a little bit on the late side. Joseph arrives in Egypt around 1666. The dates for Cayenne are 1613 to 1593. So he's about 50 years too late. So that would probably be the only reason why it couldn't be Cayenne, just because it's just way too late. And at this point, too, we have to understand that that the Hyksos at this point were reaping huge benefits from their trade relations all around the Mediterranean. So they're already at this point planned to have, you know, are reaping the benefits that Joseph had set up for the Hyksos kings. So, um, so that would be the only two reasons why. Too late, a little too late. As I said, about 50 years too late, and it's already after, say, they're reaping huge taxation, huge amounts of taxation from the Egyptians in that system that Joseph had set up. So, so that would be, um, so that would be the two reasons. That would be the two reasons, and that's really the only reasons. Just too late, and already it's after uh the Hyksos kings were reaping the benefits of the system Joseph had already set up. Ryan asks, anything interesting happen in Egypt in 2025 BC? I think that's the end of the Civil War. 2025. That is 25. That's during the reign of Senwosret the First. So, second king of Dynasty 12. Don't know how interesting that is. I mean, Senwosret the First was a cool king, very good king, but I don't think there's anything really particularly startling about that date. Okay. Next super chat here is from Bomb Papa. Thank you for that member question. I've seen movies and stories portray Judas hanging himself with a rope, but in Acts 1:18 it seems more indicative of impalement. Do you have any insight? Okay. Acts 1:18. All right. So now this man acquired a field for the price of his wickedness, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and his bowels gushed out. And it became known to all who were living in Jerusalem, so that their language, that field was called Hakeldama, that is field of blood. Okay. I'm gonna have to take a look at something for that. Just give me a moment. I need a Nestle land. Oops. Nestle land here. This is what I use when there's something kinky about a text. Salon, chapter 1. Because it looks like it's not found in every manuscript. 18 and 19. Vulgate. Yeah, 19 spoken. Lame. 150. So yeah, it looks like this is inserted in the text. So here's the issue with verses 18 and 19 in particular. It does seem that this is an insertion that's not found in all manuscripts. So that's an issue. Okay. Now I have heard people try to reconcile this with the whole hanging narrative that you find in, say, the Gospels, where this is the idea that Judas went and hung himself, and then the tree broke and he hits the floor of a ravine and sort of breaks open. Okay, so there are exegetes out there that do take that view, but given that this is an inserted piece of text that we don't find in every manuscript, I think that we have to be a little cautious about this text. So, it does appear in the Western text types like the Vulgate, but say the more reliable manuscripts are. It's not so clear that this is a part of the original text. So, so I think this is one of those things where we're just it does appear to be an assertion, and it doesn't appear to be found in even all texts. So yeah. So it's a dodgy text. So if given that it's a dodgy text, I wouldn't place too much stock in it. So, and that's why for example in the NASB it's surrounded by brackets, parentheses. Whenever you see like this in say like the NASB, it usually means that this is a scribal insertion at some point. So it's, and if you got a scribal insertion here, then you don't really need to go that far to try to reconcile it. Harry Stark says, "Didn't Papias say Judas committed suicide?" Oh yeah, Papias said it. The Gospels say it. It's only this particular text here that mentions him falling headlong. This is the only text that does that. In the Gospels, it says he hung himself. So, you don't have to go through the. I don't think you have to go through the headache here of trying to reconcile it because of the inserted nature of the text. Okay, so I hope that helps. Thank you very much for that member question. I appreciate that. But yeah, I've heard people try to reconcile this, and if you want to double down on that and say that this is original canon, then you could follow that sort of. Still covered in hair, funny hair everywhere. So, yeah. There has been many attempts to reconcile this. And as I said, the most common one by exegetes is the whole idea that he hung himself on a tree and died hanging himself, and then basically the branch broke and he tumbled down the ravine and his body split open from the impact. But I don't even think that's necessary in this case. So, hope that helps. Okay, next one here is from Mama for $2. Thank you for the super chat. Contextualize Colossians 1:15, specifically firstborn. Okay, absolutely. Colossians 1 verse 15. Okay. And he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created in the heavens and the earth, and whether thrones or heavens on earth, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authority, all things have been created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Okay. So, we go to the Greek here. We get the word. Prototokos. Okay, which is the first, basically the first of his kind. Firstborn. So, but it's clear here from the context that this is not born in that sense of to have been given birth. Okay? Not quite that. It's that he's the preeminent one of creation. So the Prototokos, yeah. Yep, Proto's back. It's back, baby. Okay. So it's not firstborn in the inheritor sense. It's firstborn in the primacy sense. Okay? Yeah, Mama says so, not firstborn in the inheritor sense. No. It's firstborn in the primacy sense, in the most important sense. Okay? So it's not even, say, firstborn in terms of ordinal birth. It's firstborn in the sense of being most important or prime. So, and you can really see even just from the context of the passage here that is for by him all things were created. Well, if all things that are created were created by him, that tells you this is not a birth order kind of thing. Both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, dominions, or rulers or authorities, all things have been created by him and for him. And he is before all things. He's before all things. He's before the creation. And in him all things hold together. This is a statement of godhood. It's a statement of divinity. So it's a statement of divinity here, and it's a statement of his primacy. Ryan says, so would the firstborn from the dead a little later be the same idea? Well, that depends. It's the same word. See here. Got a verse? Give me a verse. I can tell you. Okay. Verse 18. Yeah, it's the same word. The same word, prototokos. So he is also the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn of the dead. So he's the prime one of the dead. So he himself might come to have first place in everything. So again, it's a kind of a that sort of, there's a little bit of wordplay happening here. Protuo, first place. So prototokos, there's a little wordplay with firstborn of the dead, so that he is first place, prototuo. Okay, so this is an action of primacy. So you can easily translate in case of 18, he is the prime born of the dead, so that he himself might come to have primacy in everything. So I am Yeshua Prime. Well, yeah. Catholic Forever says Spinosaur tooth would be awesome as well. I'll have to add it to the wish list. Laugh out loud. Spinosaur teeth are wonderful. I loved having them. I used to have a small set of Spinosaur teeth. Yeah, I used to have quite the fossil collection. Don't have it anymore. I had to get rid of it. But they're very brittle, though. That's one thing you have to keep in mind with a Spinosaur tooth. They're very brittle. They're more brittle than other dinosaur teeth. Yeah, if you're going to get a Spinosaur tooth, you pretty much either have to keep it in cotton or specially mount it, so it's doesn't break apart on you. Milo says, my dream is to own literally any Therapsid or Pelycosaur fossil. You need to go to the Arizona gem and jewelry show, and not for the gems and jewelry, but for the fossil shows that happen at the same time. If you go to the fossil shows there, it'll blow your mind. Yeah, these are the people who dig up fossils and sell them to museums. Yeah, we encountered Sue there before it was moved over to the museum. It's a good road trip, actually, Mama. Mama says, road trip. Maybe you'll see the Potter collector there. Here's the thing. If you take that freeway, you'll also encounter petrified forests. There's a lot of petrified forests out that way. And usually the admission to those petrified forests is very inexpensive. You can usually get a few samples there. So yeah, a great place to go for that sort of thing. It's worth a road trip. It is worth a road trip. Oh yeah, especially if you had fun people to talk with. Mama says, "Wow, Blue Dog, Tucson is nice. Yeah, Tucson is nice. I liked Tucson. But yeah, hit those fossil shows. You don't need to hold a business license to go to the fossil shows. Some of the gem and jewelry shows you need a business license, like the really spectacular ones, like the GJX. You need a business license for. The AGTA you also need a business license for, but it's not as strict as the GJX. But there's also a lot of other shows that you can get into there that are retail. And you can find all sorts of interesting things to get into trouble with over there. Oh yeah, the crystal that we used for the crystal blade was what we got through those shows. Mama says, you saw Sue before she was in the Field Museum? That's so cool. It is. Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. For real, real? For real, real. We saw some really neat stuff at the last fossil show we attended to, the Arizona. I think it's technically called the Arizona Fossil Show. You know, we saw the giant turtles. They have those for sale. Everything there's for sale. You know, if you've got the money to buy it. We saw a T-Rex skull. Hey, you can get a T-Rex skull. It was a juvenile, about yay big, with part of the spinal cord still there. Spinal, yeah, column still there. Was $90,000 US. There was a Smilodon, saber-toothed cat skull there. I think they wanted $40,000 for that. We saw a bird fossil from China that I think they wanted $65,000 for that. So, but you could buy, I mean, if you had the money and the vehicles to move this stuff around, you can buy some crazy stuff. They had, like, whale fossils for sale. Whole whale fossils. Yeah, the giant turtle was huge. Yeah. You can buy a complete Allosaurus skeleton there. You got a few $1,000,000. Crazy. It's crazy what you can buy there, and everything's for sale. Everything's for sale. Yeah. There was even a skeleton of a cynodont there. That we managed to bump into there. So are we sure Dr. Falk isn't the main protagonist? Well, maybe I am. I don't know. What does that mean? Cynodont. Yeah, it was really cool. The Cynodont was really cool. It was only it was smaller than I expected. I want to say about 2.5, 3 feet long. Comes up like mid calf, only about like 10 inches tall. Really not a big animal, but very, very odd looking. Very odd looking. Oh yeah, they got smaller. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But they're really small. Yeah. So, but yeah, that Arizona Fossil Show, fantastic. I would highly recommend you go there, and you can pick up all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, there was like mammoth teeth. You can get. I remember seeing the mammoth teeth there. They had megalodon teeth. They had ribs from ancient bisons. Um, it just will blow your mind how much you will see there. Um, Lots of ammonites, lots of trilobites. Yeah, we got our hands on some really world class trilobites. Oh, oh yeah, the those are trilobites. Yeah, the guys from Morocco. They yeah, they had those guys were excellent at restoration. Yeah, they were able to preserve all the soft tissues and showed like the tentacles on the trilobites. Um, they did a phenomenal job. I mean, this stuff was really fragile when they were done with it, but they were able to preserve it in just amazing detail. Yeah, we could never afford that level of trilobite, but mhm. Yeah, we had yeah, they were good to us. They gave us some very good prices on dinosaur teeth. Um, we got some mosasaur teeth from them. There was another guy who did fossils from the Green River Formation, where we got like leaves and little fish, that sort of thing, fossilized. Yeah. There's a museum in Lincoln, Nebraska that has incredible mastodon skeletons. They were oily fans, I tell you. Hey, oily fans are real. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Mm. Ryan, what artifact would you want to buy? Money, not an object. Amaratasu. The Japanese sword of the sun. It's an imperial treasure. I'm not going to be able to buy it. Yeah. Yeah. Money's not an object. Politics is not an object.
Countries stand their state within the country.
Will it cause a diplomatic incident if I buy it? Yes. Oh boy. Looking it up. Okay. Milo says the Hastings Museum has some awesome posters, and I have my heart set on Evolution of Mammoth poster because they have all my boys there. I love the trilobite posters, honestly. We bought a poster at the fossil show. Yeah, it's green and gold. uh Dr. Cairo is now Samurai Cairo. Hey, I like Japanese art. I love Japanese art. Um in many ways I like Japanese art better than I like Egyptian art. Yes, I'm into Egyptian artifacts, but Japanese stuff is just gorgeous. It's on a whole different level. Mama says it's gorgeous. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And when you see the Hammond line on that thing, that is just beautiful. Beautiful. Phenomenal Hammond line. Gotta roll with the Mall Ninja. Yeah, there were only 3 Shinsas in the United States. We would attend Japanese sword shows all the time, and these are called Shinsas. They're not only short sword shows, they were also places where they did grading of swords. And we would attend the one in Chicago every year. It happened to be right around final exam time. So not exactly convenient for us, but we still did it anyway. But we would attend the one in Chicago every year. But there was also one in New York and one in Florida too. Bubbles Trouble says you don't find craftsmanship like that these days unless you dig for it. You don't find that sort of craftsmanship even if you do dig for it. That's craftsmanship that has to be preserved. CPM versus DOS. Final exams are cool swords. Why not both? That's what we did. Spring Steel Katana. Well, one of the things I really appreciate about these sword shows, these Shinsa, they didn't allow fakes. Fakes were not allowed. And even garbage swords were not allowed. You would get thrown out. They would throw out vendors that tried to bring in garbage swords and fakes. And they could tell. Yeah. Yeah, it was just they had very strict rules on what they allowed in their shows. And that just raised the whole quality of the show to
So
yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah, people did buy high quality there. because they could be assured at least they're going to get something from that was actually done by a Japanese maker. Jack Reese says, I'd rather have a spring steel katana than a traditional one because of durability. These are tools. They're tools. But they're also works of art. So, yeah, you can make a half decent spring steel katana, but the problem is the art is not in the spring steel itself. It's not in the steel itself. It's in the tempering of it. The hardening and the tempering on that. CPN versus DOS points at a wall hanger made in China. Yep, Hirohito swords. I know what I got. Yeah, you do find people like that, unfortunately. Darkblade, thoughts on European rapiers? I like European rapiers. I think European rapiers, they're a different tool. They're a different tool and they serve a different purpose. And I like them both. I like them both. Here's the thing. It's easier though to get a really, really good a nice Japanese blade. Really easier. Much easier to get a good Japanese blade than it is to get a quality vintage high art rapier. And there's actually a really good reason for that. Most European rapiers were used until they broke. And this is not a matter of quality. Okay? This is not a matter of quality. Yeah, it's like these were war swords. They were swords used in dueling and war, and they broke. You know, like any sword, if you hit steel against steel, it's gonna chip. And it's gonna break. All swords will do this. This is why the Japanese had to polish their swords all the time to remove some of the chips. Okay? So it's just so there were some really lovely rapiers made. Some really lovely I mean I saw this one rapier that the handle was narwhal tusk. Beautifully done. Narwhal tusk with gold twisted thread running down the crenellations of the tusk. Absolutely phenomenally beautiful blade. But you're going to be paying through the nose for that, because and that's if you can even get that imported, because it's part of an endangered species. But no, the narwhal did not do so well. I mean, you even have to be careful on some. I've even seen some of these on like Japanese knives. Like I remember seeing a Japanese knife handle that was where the handle was wrapped in whale bleen. The bleen is the sort of the frilly sort of filter that large whales use to eat krill. Okay, so these are not whale teeth; they're whale baleen. And some Japanese, you know, then they were whalers, so they actually took the baleen, wrapped it around the handles of certain tontos, and then used lacquer to hold it all in place. It's a very interesting method of handle wrapping, but don't even try to take that across a border. Okay? I mean, you'll be sitting in prison for a very long time. So, yeah, you need a special license to get those out of between countries. But yeah, I like European rapiers. They're great swords. I have nothing bad to say about them. It's just not as easy to get quality European rapiers, that's all. Okay, let's go move on to the next super chat here. That one. Milo has the member question. Do you think the Leviathan is supposed to be a real animal, i.e. a dinosaur, like a lot of young Earth creationists think, or is it a metaphor or spirit critter? Well, it is a spirit critter. We do know it's a spirit critter. We do see it referenced in other ancient Near Eastern texts. So it is a spirit critter. Was it something else though? Was it another creature that was also sort of shared that reputation with it? Like for example, we know it's a chaos monster. It's one of the chaos monsters. So it's not a hippo? No, I don't think it's a hippo. It is a chaos monster, but was it some other animals identified with some other animals? Well, who knows? That's really hard to say. And I don't think it was a dinosaur. I don't. I think there's other candidates it could be. But I think dinosaur is the least likely of those candidates. Chaos monsters, my beloved. Everyone loves chaos monsters. Chaos monsters are cool. We might do that in one of our fiction books in the future, is have a chaos monster in there. Bomb Papa says, when I was little, I assumed Leviathan was Godzilla. That's not a bad assumption. That's not a bad assumption. That's a perfectly reasonable assumption. It works. I mean, Godzilla is a chaos monster. He's essentially immortal. He was a chaos monster born out of the nuclear explosions, but he's immortal. He lives forever. He goes to sleep in the depths of the ocean. He breathes radioactive fire. He causes chaos. He comes up sea every 50 years and he steps on Tokyo. Sucks if you're in Tokyo. Godzilla, I'd say, is the modern equivalent of the Chaos Monster. He's the modern storybook equivalent of the Chaos Monster. In every respect. What? Oh, I don't know if Godzilla was taken from the Chaos Monster stuff, but I mean, yeah, everything that we would ascribe to the Chaos Monsters, you can ascribe to Godzilla. It's really uncanny. I don't know if the creator of Godzilla intended it to be that way, but yeah, it's what he does. It's Godzilla, immortal. He's a mass. He's an oversized lizard. He sleeps at the bottom of the ocean. Every 50 years, he comes up for a puff of air, and a good stomping of Tokyo. Milo says, well, the creator was Catholic. Okay. Then there might be a connection here. Ryan says, so when we're reading Job, just insert Godzilla instead of Leviathan? Seems pretty reasonable. Now, I don't know if that's what they had in mind back when Job was written in the Iron Age, but they had these ideas of these chaos monsters that would occasionally come up from their briny depths, or from their roaming across the heavens to put in a little chaos in things, do some natural disasters. That is not beyond the powers of a chaos monster. And Godzilla was a walking natural disaster. So, am I saying that the writer of Job thought Godzilla did it? No. No. But if you're looking for a modern equivalent of a chaos monster, Godzilla's a pretty good choice. Big Destiny style. Hey, I'm a nuclear engineer. You already know what side I'm on. Team Godzilla. Alrighty. Get back to the next one here. Milo, just to wrap it up here. I don't think Leviathan is a dinosaur like the young Earth creationists think. It is a spirit critter, but it's also a spirit critter that is tied to natural disasters as well as, say, nature uncontrollable. So, hope that helps. Thank you for the question. Really appreciate it. Okay. Super chat for $2 from Mama. Thank you for the super chat. Question: Jesus, ultimate and final sacralizing converter. Ooh. We don't actually go inside of Jesus. That's the thing about a sacralizing converter, is you do have to kind of go inside of the item to be a sacralizing converter. So I don't know if that's a good comparison. Yeah, Noah's Ark is a sacralizing converter. Even the Ark of the Covenant acts as a sacralizing converter. I don't think that Jesus himself did. I know there's Catholics that try to make try to use Mary as a kind of sacralizing converter, as it were. But yeah, that's why they have to have those weird comparisons with the Ark of the Covenant. But Mama says, but are we to remain in him? Yeah, in union with him, not inside him. Okay. Okay, there is a little prepositional difference here. So, yeah, I wouldn't take that too far. Just saying. But he is a sacrifice. He is the ultimate sacrifice. That's true. You know, and he's the final sacrifice for the redemption of sins. But he's not a sacralizing converter. That's a very, very specific thing here. Yeah. All right. Tony G here for $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. What do you think of Expedition Bible's claim that the Pishon River of Eden was the Wadi Ruma in northern Saudi Arabia, ancient Havilah? I don't see a big problem with that. Other people have mentioned that long before Expedition Bible. He's not the first one to come up with that. It's not his claim. It's not his claim. I mean, I heard about this when I was still in grad school, long before he mentioned it, long before he was on the internet. So, but I don't find Expeditions Bibles, most of his materials, to be very good. Again, he's one of those ABR pulpit ministries. So, you're going to get. Oh, what the heck are you talking about? Oh, not me. Sorry. So I think it's one of those things where, yeah, the Pishon could have been in the Wadi Ruma in northern southern Saudi Arabia. That was detected by satellite. He's not the first person to come up with this, and but I also don't find his materials to be very, very good a lot of the time. So I would just caution you about ingesting too much of his stuff. Okay, next one here is from Baron St. Vaughn for $5. Thank you very much. Super chat. Advice on studying new topics and discerning facts. There can be so much informational bias at times. Read lots, and keep reading. Read some more, and then read more. Read them till your eyes bleed. Read them till they bleed. So, so it's one of those things where it's, where we just would say at this point, that's my find yourself good source materials and read from a variety of source materials. Don't just read one set of source materials. Vary your reading. I'd say read from both conservative and liberal sources. Make sure you're trying to get all sides of the issues. So that's where I would start, is by reading, finding yourself good materials, and then read all sides of the issue. So hope that helps. Without specifics, I can't give you too much specific advice, but that'll give you a general start. Merv, regarding Judas's death, it seems that the passage is legitimate. Yeah, but based upon what? Because it's not found in the oldest manuscripts. So if it's not found in the oldest manuscripts, how legitimate is it? Might be, could be. But are we sure? No, not really. I've got pretty low confidence of that. All right, next one here. And the last super chat here is from PA888 for $19.99. Thank you for that generous super chat. I would like to sponsor a question, please. I would like to sponsor a question, please. Okay. You can sponsor a question. Any particular one? Or do we need to pick? Let's see what we said last. What time is that stamp on that question? 8:26. Pick me. Mama. We'll probably pick you still. Uh, 9:26. Here's 9:26. Or is it 8:26? 8:26. Helps if I listen correctly. Yeah, I'm really tired, so that's probably not helping. 8:26. There. Okay, 8:26. All right, Harry Stark asks the question, and this is a sponsored question here. How exactly does consensus change in history or archaeology or similar finds? It seems everyone is prone to circular reasoning. Everyone has bias. Absolutely, everyone has bias. How does consensus change? The old generation dies off. That's how. I think it was Polly who said that evidence doesn't change minds, the Grim Reaper does. Okay. And that's really how it works. It isn't so much that a new discovery comes along and changes everyone's mind. That's not how consensus generally changes. What typically happens is that you have an older generation who's holding on to those older beliefs, those old consensus beliefs, and a new generation with fresh ideas come up and challenge those beliefs. And it's generally that the older generation dies off, leaving the younger generation with a new consensus. And it's just through the attrition of mortality that you see, unless it's such a revolutionary change that people can't deny it. Like, for example, here's an example of something that used to be consensus that isn't anymore in the field of Egyptology. The whole idea that Egypt had an empire. We know now enough about the political structure of Egypt to know it didn't have an empire. It had a hegemony. Now, the old generation of Egyptologists will still say call it the Egyptian Empire, and you still find biblical scholars who call it an empire. But that generation's dying off. Almost everyone who's trained in the field today is trained to understand Egypt as a hegemony, not an empire. So this is an example where just the consensus is changing because the old guard is retiring and dying off. And what's the difference between a hegemony and an empire? Political control. That's the difference. Okay? Political control. In a case of an empire, you directly control that piece of territory. Okay? So, whereas with the hegemony, you assert political influence but not direct control. So, think of it this way. The Soviet Union was an empire. It was an empire. It was a communist empire, but it was an empire. Okay? When it gobbled the territory, when it gobbled the country, it became another Soviet republic. Okay? So, the Soviet Union was really an empire. Okay? Yeah, Russia's still an empire, and we won't get into that. But yes, Russia is trying to be an empire again. In the case of, say, the United States doesn't really have an empire. It has a hegemony. It's got a lot of influence. You know, essentially, there's a lot of puppet states that the United States has control over, even though it's not direct political control. Like, for example, you could say, for example, that the United States has hegemonic control over the Philippines. Okay? It's got a naval base out there. It's got a lot of warships out there. It's asserting a hegemonic control over the region, even though politically the Philippines has its own government, its own elections, it makes its own political decisions internally, but there is some influence by this greater superpower that's overlooking it. That's a hegemony. Okay. So that's sort of the difference. Is, do you have direct control? Are you doing statecraft in that area? Is your own puppet regimes being put there? Those decisions will go into, say, the making of an empire versus a hegemony. Now, in the case of ancient Egypt versus, say, a place like Assyria or Babylon, okay? Assyria and Babylon would just roll in. They would knock off the local kings, and put their own kings in charge. Kings that did exactly what the governor wants, and they would make these places territories of the greater empire. So let's say the case of Babylon. Okay? Babylon rose in, makes Judea, the kingdom of Judah, its own state. It deposes the king and puts in a governor, Gedaliah. Okay? That's an example of an empire where you're not just putting in, say, taking stuff out of it, you're also putting in your own institutions to reshape the individual country. Egypt had an hegemony. Basically, Egypt collected tribute from its vassal states. Didn't really care what happened there politically. Never changed the governments. If they decided to kill each other over in Canaan, they didn't care. They didn't care at all. So yeah, that's sort of the difference between a hegemony and an empire, is what's the level of control here and the interest in maintaining that control. Okay. Huh? I can't hear you. All right, later then. Okay, so that's the difference. I saw one more super chat here. Louis Sandoval, thank you very much for 250 Dominican pesos. Thank you so very much. Were humanity earliest encounters with spiritual beings actually interactions, cultural interpretations, or manifestations of consciousness? Hard to say. That one's hard to say. We assume that humanity, going all the way back to the beginning, has had encounters with spirit beings of some kind. Now, and some of that is just, we take it for granted that this is just something that's part of human nature. Now, the earliest recordings of spirit encounters go back to Akkadian documents. So, there are records of ghosts being seen by people in Mesopotamia. Going back to, I think, the old Babylonian period or something like that. Was it Irving Finkel, I think? He wrote a book on ghosts from Mesopotamian documents. Very interesting book. Very interesting book. So, and he had some very interesting takes on this too. You know, Irving Finkel's not a particularly religious man, but you know, he would say he would do this at dinner parties. You know, he would tell at dinner parties, "Oh, I'm doing this really interesting research on ghosts or spirits," and he said sooner or later, you know, you've got a group of 8 people there at a dinner party. He said sooner or later, somebody will come up to him and whisper, "Hey, were you serious about that ghost thing?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm doing the research on this." And he goes, "I saw something." And he discovered that about 1 in 8 people will come up and tell him that they've seen something. So he thinks this is part of our human nature. That, you know, it's something that goes back to, you know, even before we even made fire. So yeah, I've seen strange stuff too. I've seen Shadow Man. Yeah, The First Ghost, that's the name of the book. It's a very good book. Yeah. But I saw an interview of where he talks about this too, his book, and the sort of experiences that he's encountered in talking with other people. So Bubble Trouble says ghosts, although it's an umbrella term, are real one way or the other. Yeah. And we don't know exactly what they are, and there's many options to that they could be. You know, I've heard of like ghosts living. That's a possibility. Are they a recording? Possible. Spirit mimicking another entity? Possible. We're not really sure. We're not really sure exactly what they are. But enough people have seen them that we have to admit that there's something going on. So, yeah. Okay. So, any other non-super chats here? We'll probably call it a little early because I am exhausted and we've run out of questions. But I think I have no thoughts on that. I haven't seen it. I will take a quick look, and if we don't, we'll maybe call it an early night. Because frankly, I am exhausted, and I would really appreciate the sleep. So, just playing Splinter Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Tom Stolby, great album. Splinter of the Mind's Eye is a great album. Fantastic album. I think it's one of its best. Particularly love the track on that Quantum Mechanic. Oh, you mean the book? Oh, you're playing the book. The Star Wars book by Alan Dean Foster. A good book. Jackery, I didn't know that there was an album. There was an album and a video. The video used computer graphics. It was a computer graphic music video that did the whole album. I didn't know you were referring to the book. The book by Alan Dean Foster was excellent. That's what he intended to be the next installment in the Star Wars series after the original. Yeah. He had written that with permission from Lucas as a setup for the next installment in the Star Wars saga. And the studio wanted to go another direction. So studios don't know how to be artistic. But he had permission. So the studio tried to claw it back, tried to get Alan Dean Foster to take that book off the market. And he refused. He refused. And good on him. It was a good book. A very good book. Well, yeah, Alan Dean Foster's having problems getting published. He's also having problems getting his royalties from Disney. Well, yeah, he gets royalties for the Star Wars films because he wrote the scripts. He was script editor. Oh, he's suing Disney left and right to try to get his royalties. Oh, Disney's awful about paying royalties. Oh, they'll get all aggro and down your neck if you don't pay them. But if they don't pay you, oh, they will they'll stonewall you for years. Stonewall you for years. Ah, Tony G asks, so is it canon? Uh, yes, he wrote Star Trek novels too, didn't he? Yes, he did. Yeah, he wrote a lot of things. Alan Dean Foster did a lot of movie scripts and the books that accompanied the movies. So yeah, he was very prolific in the 80s and 90s. Foster was very prolific in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, he wrote several episodes of Star Trek, as well as the novels. I think he may have even written some of the scripts for, I think the original, the first Star Trek movie as well. So now, is Splinter of the Mind's Eye canon? No, it's not canon. Love it if it was canon. Because frankly, yeah, it was very good. It should be canon. It's not though. Yeah, I think he wrote this. I agree with that's what I was meaning by the first Star Trek movie. The motionless picture, yeah. It wasn't a great film. It wasn't a great film, but he was still a good writer. So yeah. I read the Splinter of the Mind's Eye in high school. Oh, Jack Race is better than Disney Star Wars, I'm sure. Yeah, much better. Ugh. Well, I mean, the Disney Star Wars franchise has gotten so bad. People are looking at the prequels and going, "Hey, those are pretty darn good now, aren't they?" Those prequels are not so bad anymore. Oh, oh, Rogue One, Last Jedi. Oh no! Please stop! 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 Oh boy. Mama here has a super chat for $5. Thank you for the super chat. My idea: unlike profane items, put temporarily in a Dibbin box to make sacred, take out and offer. We must remain in our sacralizing converter. Jesus. Okay. Suppose. General Kenobi. Oh, that was awful too. Solo. Solo was bad. Oh, yuck. PC4YT. Misa think the sequel's not so bad, eh? Oh boy. Yeah, they trashed. It's amazing. Disney in a decade trashed an entire franchise, and not just that franchise, but several franchises. I mean, Disney trashed the Star Wars franchise. They trashed the Doctor Who franchise. They've trashed the Marvel Comic Universe franchise. Three franchises completely trashed in a decade. That takes some very special incompetence. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Don't
It's it's just oh bad pun. Bad pun, but not wrong. The new Star Wars movies are generally grievous. Yeah. Bad pun. Granddad level pun. Yeah. No, it's I mean, I just don't understand how. I mean, with all. I mean, okay. Here's a little more Dr. Falk lore for you. I used to work for Disney. Used to work for them. I think I worked for them for about a year. Uh, yeah, not a great company to work for, honestly. Uh, DC4YT. Of course you did. And this is why I don't write a memoir. This is why I don't write a memoir. The very first question, why am I going to write a memoir? No. Because people won't believe me if I do. No, I did not work. Old lore knew that already. On a movie? No, not at Disney. At Disney, what I worked on was their search engine. Disney used to have its own search engine called Go.com. You're probably, all of you are probably way too young to remember this. But I was a systems performance engineer in their search engine division. I make computers go fast.
I like
Yeah. Bubble machine. That's probably one of the quickest things to lose value on a resume. I worked for Disney. Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. It's not bragging rights. Mama says, "Why are you so tired? Did I miss something?" Yeah, I've been up all night. I didn't get any sleep last night, so I'm absolutely exhausted. Jack Ray, Go was bad, but it was fast. I got those platters spinning so quick that it caused the whole data center to lose power. I make I make computers go fast. So fast I blew out the breaker. Blew out the breaker on a 30 amp circuit. That takes some very special engineering where you can make a computer run so quickly that it draws so much power that it tripped the breaker on the 30 amp circuit. Oh, that was fun. We ended up having to split the power load across two 30 amp circuits. But boy, was it fast. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for a little while, Go had the fastest search engine on the planet. Had the fastest search engine on the planet. Uh, and I was responsible for it. I was responsible for making it go fast. Very fast. I have a need for speed. Especially on my computers. Oh yeah, I had this back then I had this quite a knack for taking old pieces of junk and turning them into really fast running computers. Um yeah, it was sounds like an old Star Trek TV episode. Maybe, yeah. Mama says Doc needs a hug and a nap. Yeah, I need a hug and a nap. Bubble Trouble. Sure you didn't help make Hercules because you zapped those servers like Zeus? What year was Hercules made? I don't even remember. Can you look it up? I'll tell you what. One thing I was there for was the Powder Puff Girls. A particular incident. Remember that there was this is a story I had from Disney. Was Disney had a huge DVD recall when I was there. Okay? And okay, so 95 to 99. I was there in 99. So I was at Disney from 1999 to 2000. But oh yeah, the Powerpuff Girls. They had a huge recall on the Powerpuff Girls DVD because the DVDs were infected with the monkey love virus. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. It was horribly embarrassing. Mama, why am I shocked? It was priceless. It was priceless. So funny. Mama, wow. Wow. Jack Ray, that is shareware level stupid virus. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Double trouble. Who in the whole world managed to do that? Some marketing person who was doing this, doing the packaging for the DVD. Yeah, yeah. It had a little bit of software on there, and that software was infected. Oh, howdy, was it infected? A whole lot of monkey love. Oh yeah, it was one of those interactive DVDs. Yeah, yeah. Jack Ray says, were those during the silly interactive DVD craze? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was one of those interactive DVDs. So. Papa, say what you want about Disney, but they had the most interesting disgruntled employee incidents. That is definitely the understatement of the year. Ah, it was a weirdo. It was a weird place to work. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, the whole employee thing with the beards. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They've had some real weird disgruntled things. Milo Mortimer, Powderpuff Girls DVD Ultra Rare Collector's Edition. Jack Ray, I hated that craze. Oh yeah, the DVD software craze was just all interactive DVD craze was off. So was the interactive CD craze. It was just as bad. Jack Ray bloated and pointless. Yeah, Merv Monson. Too much monkey business. Good times. The 1990s, 2000s were good times. Bubble machine, bubble trouble. Hey, I grew up with those interactive DVDs. They were the only video games we could afford. No, you're not. You're not doing that. This is different, hon. This is so much different. Oh, they were just really. I mean, I remember the Harry Potter one, where it had like the interactive game. It was had like this tunnel game you went through on the DVD one. Yeah, the Harry Potter DVD had a lot of those little mini games on there. And they weren't any good. I mean, here's the thing: they were basically you got the DVD was the video that you were supposed to watch, like the cartoon or the movie, and then they added some interactive content with it. Usually these little trashy video mini games. And they would wreak absolute havoc with your devices because they were compatible. I mean, they. Milo says, "Yeah, for real, that Jungle 2 maze game was goated." Oh boy. Uh Bubble trouble. My only question was how they figured it out. Um some poor little girl's computer got scrambled. Yeah, that's how they figured it out. But yeah, they would you'd put them in your computer and they'd mess things up. If it was like a real you could program them to work on a television DVD player, but not every DVD player was compatible with them either. So some people would buy these DVDs, take them home, try to run the movie, and couldn't run the movie. So yeah, they were a mess. They were a mess. John says, I hated when DVDs had long intro videos and animations before getting to the main menu. Yeah, everyone did. Jack Ray, power, poof, goes the computer. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Good times. Good times. Yeah, that was one of my experiences at Disney Corp. Was when we were. It was 1999 to 2000 was not a great time to be for Disney. Um, Pixar was kicking their butt at the box office. Um, they had it's kicked their butt so many times. Yeah, yeah,
Disney buys it out.
yep, yep. Mama says Disney was the worst with those forever ads to get to play a stupid movie. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Tony G. Y2K was the big fear. You know, here's the thing. It depended where you were. We were in Silicon Valley at the time, and it was not. No one was afraid of Y2K in Silicon Valley. Nobody cared because here's the thought. Um, we were all at the center of the computer world. You know, everyone in Silicon Valley had their computers patched, and we kind of all figured that if Y2K happened, and it was a colossal shutdown of everything, we were all going to get rich. That was the thought. We were going to get rich off of Y2K because if there wasn't enough people out there to do the repairs, to do the patching, hey, those are hot side gigs. So now nothing happened with Y2K. I think someone's microwave might have malfunctioned, but that was about it. Yeah, my microwave was fine. My computers were fine. But really, Y2K was nothing. Oh yeah, it was. John says I was a kid during Y2K, so all I heard was the end of the world and everything was going to collapse. And you know what? There were a lot of Christian authors who tried to capitalize on fears of Y2K. The president of Crown Financial Ministries did this. He had these fear sessions where he would try to get people to invest in dehydrated food and gold and that sort of thing. How many people bought generators, right? How many people had garages full of dehydrated rice pilaf, shrimp pilaf, and cans of peas? Gallons and gallons of bottled water, drums of bottled water. It was so stupid. It's so stupid. People buying a truck, a pallet load of 30-year-old MREs, thinking they're preparing for the end. Milo says the real Y2K were the friends we made along the way. Yeah. Mama says I knew some people who did that. Yeah, so did we, but they weren't our neighbors. Because everybody in the Silicon Valley knew what was going on. Merv Monson, the fun days always thrive on fear corn, sadly, like Jimmy Baker and his ilk. Yeah. Well, as I said, that head of Crown Financial Ministries, he was probably the most influential one. You know, he was getting people ready for the end, and it did not happen. 25 years later, my microwave still hasn't broken down from Y2K. I just don't understand how that happened. Jack Ray, I didn't care about Y2K as it was just silly. It was silly, yeah. Working IT at my college, it was a joke because we knew the backbone of the systems was working fine and fixed. Well, yeah, we had everything patched. You know, all our systems were patched. It was nothing was going to happen. Ooh, mama. And they were Crown Financial Ministry fans. Yeah. Yeah, that guy was irresponsible. He was really irresponsible. And frankly, this ministry never recovered from that. Really. I mean, he tried to say, "Oh, it's going to happen in 2001." He just kept moving moving the clock. Well, people kept going along with it, but yeah, that's why you don't do newspaper prophecy. I think he died sometime in like 2005. He died shortly after that. He wasn't alive much longer after that debacle, but I guess for him it was the end. But it wasn't from Y2K or 2001. Milo Mortimer, that 2012, but some people don't remember that. Oh yeah, the Aztec calendar thing. The Mayan calendar thing, yeah. Yeah, it's the Mayan circular calendar, which just turns another circle. That's all it does. Mama didn't recover, didn't deserve to cover. Yeah. Jack Ray, 2012 was silly. So was 1982. Remember all the planets aligning? All the planets aligning in 1982. This was supposed to cause tidal waves and volcanoes and the apocalypse. I even remember I had a little pamphlet. 1982. Party like it's 1982. Yeah. Planets aligned. And nothing happened. Yeah. Nothing happened. Because the actual gravitational force asserted by all the planets is minuscule compared to the gravitational force of the sun. That would have been awesome. Oh, well, maybe. Now, 1984, there was a good warning. Yeah, that one you should pay attention to. Not 1982, but 1984. Definitely pay attention to that one. We're living that now. Keeps Learning says, where was it? 88 reasons why the rapture would be in 1988. I knew a guy who so believed that the alignment of the planets was going to cause the coming of the end of the world, the Antichrist, and all that. That was going to be the beginning of the rapture. That he took a mortgage on his house, took a mortgage on his house, went on a vacation to Hawaii, spent it all on luxury goods and creature comforts, and thought he would never have to pay it back because the rapture was going to come and the debt's just going to be wiped away. Guess what happened? Dude lost his home. And served him right. Served him right for trying to cheat people using the rapture. So yeah, that was a thing. It was a thing. Bubble trouble on land and sea. I got the power if I just believe. Well, Mama says swimming in an extinct volcano caldera. He's broke now? Poor guy. Should have advised him better. Well, I mean, if you're going to take huge amounts of bank loans and mortgages and not intend to pay them off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't, like, if Christ is coming back, I don't want my last act before I meet my master to be, oh, I stole a whole bunch of money from a bank. I don't think I want to tell the master that. I just it's just like, no. No. I mean, if you really think the rapture's coming, exactly, honey. If you really think Christ is returning, the last thing you should be doing is committing crimes. Just saying. Yeah. Tony G, see them goats? Stand over there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was just so wrong-headed in so many ways. Just no, if you really believe that Christ is returning, don't start committing crimes. Please, don't. Mama says, sorry, Doc, me and my progeny are reminiscing about H2O. Just add water? Aussie Mermaid show from like 20 years ago? Okay. Jack Ray, all the idiots pushing AI now will have a worse effect by crippling people's minds. People will dumb out too much. I think this whole thing about AI is really overblown, honestly. Um, I think people are right now headed down that path of stupidity anyway. They're just I think AI is just pushing the inevitable here. This didn't start with AI. Honestly, the whole dumbing down began with great inflation. Yeah, The Closing of the American Mind was a book that 90s. But yeah, it all started with great inflation. That's where it started. Great inflation, the corporatization of schools, relaxed literacy standards. That's where it began. Jack Ray, oh yeah, great inflation. Wow, what the heck is a 5.0? It's what you get with the rations these days. Everyone gets a 5.0. It's your participation star. Jack Ray, 5.0, my blank. Back in my day, we took honors and AP classes and got the same 4.0 as everyone else did. Yeah. Yeah. That used to be the highest you could get.
Yeah.
Was 4.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no A plus when I went to school. When I was in high school, there was no A pluses. Just A's. A was the highest you could get. So 4.0 was the highest you could used to be able to get. And then they changed it to a 5-point system. And really, I mean, the whole 5-point system doesn't make much sense anyway. But um but what also happened too with grade inflation is not just that the system changed, but the whole grading system changed. So not just the grading, sorry, not the letter grades, the actual marking of materials. Like um Tony G, grade on the curve. You know, here's what my sister is in the school system, in the BC school system, and she says she can't give a child an F. Not allowed to. It's school policy. She can't give an F. Even if the child has never turned in a single assignment, or the only assignment they turned in was so atrociously bad, wouldn't rate for the lowest mark possible, gets a 0, still can't give him an F. It's gotten that bad in schools. So I mean, the whole idea of the bell curve was your your average, your sort of your peak of your bell curve would be around 2.5 or a C plus. Okay, that was your sort of your peak of your bell curve. Nowadays, your peak of your bell curve is around 4.0. Okay? And no one is allowed to get an F. Yeah. Mama says, money isn't what it used to be. Grades aren't what they used to be. Food isn't what it used to be. Milo says, I got a 4.0 right now that I'm pretty proud of, to be honest, because I work hard and don't use ChatGPT. Good. Don't use ChatGPT. Don't do it. Not for your homework anyway. Not for anything that really matters. Look, I mean, I think there are uses for AI, and I'm pretty vocal about that. AI is not going away. It makes great T-shirts. I think you can use it as AI art assets. I think that if you've got, I would suggest though that before you do that though, develop those skills as an artist first. Then you know how to really use them. I think that AI is very good at making marketing plans. Very good at making marketing plans and making marketing materials, because 90% of what AI is trained on is marketing materials. It's not good at essays. It's terrible. I would say that for most say AI, general large language models, they only write essays at a C- grade 8 level. That's where they're at. It's C- at the grade 8 level. So that's what ChatGPT does. Now the problem is, because of grade inflation, because of deteriorating marking standards, the average, how do I say this? The average student's writing abilities has gone down markedly over the last 40 years. And there was a book I read that came out of professors were talking about this out of Western Ontario University. They wrote a whole book on grade inflation, and it was an excellent book, really a sobering book. And they basically said, if you don't turn this ship around, we're going to have a whole generation of students that don't know how to read and write at a basic college level. And they aren't wrong. Their prediction came out exactly as they said. I mean, when I was marking papers at the university level, it horrified me how bad people's English skills were. I mean, it was like, was I reading a grade 5 paper? These are supposed to be like second-year university students. And it looks like I'm reading something that was done by a grade 5er. It was not college-level work. And so now we're in a situation today where your average reader cannot tell the difference between AI writing and writing done by a professional author. Here's the reason why. Okay? While AI's writing skills have gotten better over time, they're only going to be mediocre, ever. Because that's the bulk of the material that AI is trained on. But the skills of your professional writers have also declined because of their education, because of grade inflation, because of deficiencies in marking. And what's happened is the two, AI and professional writing, is sort of meeting at the mushy middle of mediocrity. That's what's happening. So they're both headed to the same destination, which is mediocrity, which is why people today, unless somebody put it to tell in the writing, like they forget to remove the prompt, Your average person cannot tell the difference between a mediocre human writer and a mediocre AI writer because they're essentially the same. They're both in that zone of mediocrity. Now, a really fabulous writer, no AI can emulate what they do because the skills that they have, the care they have with their word choice, is just so much above the mediocre that at this point, no LLM will ever be able will be able to emulate that. So it's one of those things where it's trained on mediocrity, it's going to produce mediocrity. That's what we find with LLMs. That's what they're doing. Large language models, they're trained on mediocrity, and that's what they're producing as content. But unfortunately, the our professional fiction writers these days are also pretty mediocre. I saw this video where this New York editor compared two pieces side by side. One by a professional fiction writer, romance writer, and a similar piece of work done by a generative AI. And she couldn't tell the difference. Frankly, they were both garbage. Both writing samples were garbage. It's terrible. I mean, what the human author wrote was just, I mean, it was weird. Weird and disjointed and not smooth prose, and it's just like, so ChatGPT can replace a crappy human writer. Color me surprised. Not that surprised. So, Baron. Oh boy. Yeah. But it's astonishing how many people are wowed by generative AI art and photography. They're swept away by the images that they can't tell the blatant flaws and inconsistencies. Well, you know, I think there's even a use case. I mean, here's the one place where I think there is a use case for AI. If you use generative AI art as art assets, not as complete works, then absolutely knock yourself out. You can make some really nice stuff with generative AI assets. But then again, at that point, you're treating it like photo montage. You know, if the hand doesn't look right, well, you clip it out with one that does. If the picture isn't symmetrical, that's what clone stamping is for. The color grading not right, well, you shouldn't be releasing art to the world that isn't color graded anyway. Everyone color grades. So, but I think what's even more concerning is sort of the lack of literacy when it comes to AI. And I think this is not just a problem that people are depending on AI. That's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that people don't recognize how ubiquitous AI already is. You know, I hear these authors do this sort of stance where they go, you know, I'm against all forms of AI. Everything AI is, I'll never use anything AI. That's not even realistic anymore. Because AI is in everything. You know, you use Photoshop, you use AI. Lightroom, practically every image on the net now has been modified by AI in some way to enhance it. You know, Lightroom is a big AI tool. You know, there's, you know, the sharpening tool is in Lightroom is totally AI algorithm. You use email. If you use Hotmail or Gmail, you're using AI. That's how it gets your mail to your box. Credit card companies use AI. So you can't even buy stuff without using AI. Because frankly, that's AI is doing the fraud detection. It's wrong a lot of times, but it does the fraud detection. It's absolutely everywhere. Artists have been using AI for over 30 years. Because this is not the first kick of the can at AI. Yes, the large language model is new, but AI isn't. Yeah. But that's always the reduction of employment has always been an argument against all technology. Ever since the Luddites. And it does happen, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, artists have been using AI since the 1980s. I mean, I hope nobody here thinks that artists draw straight lines. They don't. Lines. No, we'll get to her question in a moment. Yeah. 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 So, I mean, artists have been using computer adjusted artwork for ages, and nobody has ever noticed. People just think, oh, that guy has such smooth lines on his drawing. No, that's Streamline. Used to be Streamline. The Streamline tools now integrated directly into things like Photoshop and Illustrator, but Streamline. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so this has been something that's always been with us, at least 30 years. So, Mama asks, are people saying AI is the mark of the beast? There are some people out there that are saying that. I have seen that. There also some of them are saying it's the fall of the West. That's going to cause a financial disaster that leads to the Four Horsemen. I've heard that. I don't think any of that is valid. I think what's going to end up happening is this is just going to become another technology that gets integrated into workflows, and we'll come to terms with it, because we have to. Every technology we have to come to terms with, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the wheel, gunpowder, the atomic bomb, the computer. Oh, oh yeah, gunpowder was absolutely as horrible as people said it to be. But we've also found ways of using it in productive ways. Nail guns for housing. Yeah, they use gunpowder caps to drive nails into. Yeah, so there are ways. All this technology is stuff we have to negotiate with. There's no such thing as technology free of, say, adverse consequences. All technology comes with adverse consequences, which you would call regress. Progress and regress, two sides of the same coin. But all these things, this is one of the reasons why I say, the Killbot scenario has to be engaged in every science fiction book, because it's almost an inevitability that, say, androids, robots, AIs will be used at some point for military purposes. because people like killing other people. So, Jack Ray, that time the U.S. Air Force had to create an early global positioning system for guiding submarine ballistic missiles. Yeah. Yep. Well, we talk about the Killbot scenario a bit in this book. We don't call it the Killbot scenario, but it is the Killbot scenario. If you want to read more about the Killbot scenario, you can read it on my Substack, by the way, where I talk about this. So, but yeah, there's all technology has its pluses and minuses, and we have to come to terms and make an uneasy peace with it. I mean, the first wheels weren't used on wagons; they were used on chariots. Almost everything starts with a warfare application. Yep. Yep. Corningware. Missile nose cones. Yeah, Corningware started off as missile nose cones. Now we make pies in it. Mm-hmm. Yep. We all have to come to terms. Everybody has to come to terms with with technology. The internet. Oh yeah. The internet had definitely a military application. It was meant to be the replacement communication system in the event of nuclear war. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the original purpose of DARPANET. And that paved the way for our modern internet. Ah, good times. But yeah, there was a lot of this, HTML. HTML started as a way so that the US military could store its specification sheets on its boats without sinking the boat, because the printouts were too heavy to take with them. So yeah, there's a lot of technology that Mask of Shy, not the electric guitar. Yeah, the electric guitar too. Electric guitar too. Those pickups were originally used in field radios. Yeah. Jack Ray, XML, DTT, XL, SGML. Yeah, SGML was primarily a Department of Defense initiative. I know, I was there. I saw it. Mask of Shy. What the F? Yeah. Well, don't know what to tell you. Those pickups, they were used for field radios. No, I did not work at the DoD. Mama asks, do you work for the DoD? No, I did not work for the DoD. I worked for a consultant who worked for the DoD. Okay? I worked for a small SGML company called SoftQuad. And SoftQuad did consulting for the Department of Defense. And what we did was we basically helped the military put together its document type definition for doing for doing its documentation and its document storage retrieval system. But that was all done in SGML. SGML with a document type definition. So I worked as basically the assistant to the consultant that did that work. Yeah. Yeah. Jack Ray says consultant for the DoD is the most common way to work with the government for software. Yeah. That's what we did. But SoftQuad used to be the big name in SGML software. It isn't anymore. It's now a defunct company. I think it got bought out by its developers, but it's not worth anything anymore. Jack Ray says, I mean DoD government software, whatever. I knew some in the past that did that. Most slowly and boring too with red tape. Yeah. Mama says I worked for a company that briefly worked for the newly minted TSA. Okay. Jack Ray says self-defining specifications were helpful. Now with JSON and YAML, it's slimmer but not self-defining. Yeah, well, that's what you gave up for not having, or at least having a static document type definition. Is you lost some flexibility without that document type definition. But most people don't need that flexibility. They needed something that they could just write. So it was inevitable that SGML was going to give away to other standards like HTML and XML. The Katsui question: have you worked with the 8088 processor? Yes, I have. I've worked with the 8088. I've worked with the 8086. The whole Intel line. The first processor I actually ever owned was an 8008. 8008. That's the oldest processor I worked on. Yeah, so yeah, I worked with the 8088 on the IBM PCs. Yeah. Harry Stark, what search engine does David use today and why? I still use Google. Um, I don't like Microsoft's search engine. I had but I remember some wacky search engines too. Like Alta Vista. Jack Ray, XML was the backbone of service architecture for decades. It was critical to establish it. It was critical, yeah. It was an important technology in its time. Very important technology in its time. The cat suite. Oh, nice. I'm currently studying the Visible Computer 8088. Well, you can get now 8088 emulators and 8086 emulators and 286 emulators and all those things now. Yeah, Yahoo. I remember Yahoo. I remember when Mozilla had its own search engine for a while. Bing hates Bing. Yeah, Mozilla used to have its own search engine at one point. It wasn't very good, but yeah, Mosaic, sorry, Mosaic, not Mozilla, Mosaic. Mosaic had a browser and it had a rudimentary search engine. But yeah, that was some cool stuff. Oh, that was the day and age when technology was still fun. Technology isn't fun anymore. Oh. Yeah. No, technology isn't fun anymore. Jack Ray, the old mainframe computers with weird comm setups was oy vey. Every time it was different, no specification. Oh yeah, some of those old computers were wild. Um, I worked on a Sequent S32 for a bit. That was a piece of junk. Um, wow, that was a piece of junk. Hated those Sequents. I worked on an N Cube. I worked on what was it now? A bunch of HPs, the Deck Alphas, lots of Sun stuff. I mean, most of my bread and butter was doing Sun Microsystems kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I even saw a few Apollos. So there was some crazy equipment that I worked on. Some old HPs. Oh yeah, there was the L class, the N class, those sorts of things. Yeah, yeah, Unix systems. Jack Ray, Sun Spark RISC chips. Oh, I got my start actually not on the Spark pre-Spark, the Sun 3s. That's where my first workstation was when I got my first computer job was a Sun 380. That's not Spark. That's an old Sun 3. Um, Running the original Sun OS. Cool stuff. I mean, it was like totally Berkeley, but yeah, it was interesting. Okay. But I like the Sparks. I like the Sparks. It was good technology. They were fun to use, fun to set up. Any idiot could set up a Spark. They were fast for the time. I actually owned several Sparks myself. That were sort of thrown away to the trash. Like I had a Sun. Let's see which ones I have. I had Spark 2. A Spark 2. I had a Spark 20. I had a Spark IPC. What else did I have? I had a Spark 360. Big honking thing. Let's see, anything else that pops to mind? No, I think that covers my Spark. I also had an SGI at one point too. I had an O2 at one point. This SGI O2 was nice. I kind of missed the O2. I mean, it's nothing compared to what I have on my desktop today, but the SGI O2 was my terminal and my desktop for a long time. I actually had a keyboard and video switch where I could switch between the SGI and the MIPC because I just would switch between them so often. But yeah, The O2s were really cool. They were lovely machines. They were fast. They had beautiful graphics. They even had a built-in video editing. And very few computers had built-in video editing. So yeah, it was that was a beautiful machine, that SGI. Okay, we're at 11:36. There's no more questions, obviously, because we're more or less chewing the fat now on technology. So we haven't had a foodie section. I think we talked a little bit about fossilized buffalo ribs. Uh, yeah, yeah, that was actually that counts as food. Hey, I could use some ribs right now. They sound damn good. Um, food, food. No AT section. Yeah, he doesn't pop out in here anymore for very much. It's too late for him. He lives in Florida. He lives in Florida, so I think what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna call it a night at this point. And there's no more questions, and I'm kind of out of steam. And I think we've probably got the best out of me at this point. Can these hit different when there's nothing to eat? I'm sure they do. Sure they do. AT spent his money elsewhere. Probably did. But it's too late for him. It's too late at night for him. So yeah, we're gonna call it a night here. Want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. I know we're kind of on the holiday weekend here, so not as many questions as normal. So, but anyway, I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight, who provided your super chats, and who gave us donations through PayPal. We really appreciate that. Thank you so very much. You put food on the table and you help us to continue this work. So we really, really appreciate that. We also want to thank our YouTube and our Patreon membership supporters. You guys keep the equipment fixed, in good repair. We really appreciate that. And finally, we want to thank our regular subscribers who watch our videos, hit that like and subscribe button, and share the URLs with other social media platforms. You guys get the message out there. That said, have a great night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.